Billionaire threw pregnant Maid in rain. The rain hammered down like bullets as she collapsed on the concrete, her pregnant belly hitting the ground first. Blood mixed with rainwater, creating crimson rivers that flowed toward the storm drain. The billionaire's Rolls Royce drove past without slowing down, its taillights disappearing into darkness like the eyes of a demon. But what happened in the next 60 seconds would change 3 lives forever and prove that sometimes the poorest person in the room has the richest heart. But before I tell you what happened, I need to warn you that this story will challenge everything you believe about wealth, poverty, and the invisible threads that connect us all. It will make you question who the real heroes are in our society. And it might just change how you see that homeless person you pass every day on your way to work. If you love powerful stories with life-changing lessons, subscribe now and hit that notification bell. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Because by the end of this story, you'll understand why the poorest person in this tale became the richest, and why the billionaire lost everything that truly mattered. You'll learn why a 12-year-old boy with nothing gave everything, while a man with everything gave nothing. But let me take you back to where it all began, to the moment when Isabella Rodriguez woke up believing it would be just another day of invisible labor. This is the story of Isabella Rodriguez, a 24-year-old housemaid who had spent 3 years believing that hard work and loyalty would eventually be rewarded. She was wrong, dead wrong, and she was about to pay the ultimate price for that naive belief. Isabella woke up every morning at 4:30, before the billionaire's household stirred to life. She would prepare breakfast for a family that never thanked her, clean 19 rooms that no one appreciated, do laundry for people who wore clothes once and threw them away, and tend a garden that cost more to maintain than her annual salary. All for $450 a month. But she never complained. She never protested. She never demanded more. Why? Because she had a dream that kept her going through every exhausting day. Isabella was saving every penny to send her younger sister to nursing school back in Honduras. She kept a weathered notebook under her thin mattress in the servants' quarters where she calculated expenses and crossed off saved amounts with a blue pen. She was only $1,800 away from her goal. $1,800 stood between her sister's future as a nurse and a lifetime of poverty. Every morning, Isabella would kiss that notebook before hiding it away and whisper a prayer that she'd make it. But 3 months ago, everything changed in a way that shattered her carefully constructed plans. Isabella discovered she was pregnant. The father, a man named Carlos who had worked as a gardener in a neighboring estate and had promised marriage under the stars, vanished the day she told him. He quit his job, changed his phone number, and disappeared like morning mist. Now, she was alone, carrying a child she already loved desperately, working exhausting 16-hour days, and terrified every single morning that someone would notice her condition and she'd lose her job. Her feet swelled so badly that her shoes no longer fit, the cheap canvas splitting at the seams. She worked barefoot in the kitchen, hiding behind a marble counter whenever the billionaire walked by, pressing her swollen feet against the cold tile for relief. Her back ached from lifting heavy laundry baskets filled with silk sheets and designer clothes, a sharp pain that shot from her spine down to her legs. At night, she would cry silently into her thin pillow, one hand on her growing belly, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. "I promise I'll take care of you. I promise you'll have a better life than me. I promise you'll never go hungry. I promise you'll go to school. I promise, mi amor. I promise." Isabella had no idea that in exactly 48 hours, the billionaire would destroy her life with 3 words. And 72 hours after that, a person she'd never met would save it, proving that angels don't always have wings, and sometimes they live in cardboard boxes. Now, let me introduce you to Marcus Ashford III, the 52-year-old billionaire who owned a mansion where Isabella worked. Marcus was worth $780 million, according to the latest Forbes estimate. He owned 18 luxury properties across 3 continents, drove a different car from his collection of 23 vehicles every day, employed a staff of 47 people, and his name appeared on the Forbes billionaire list annually with a photograph that showed perfect teeth and empty eyes. To the world, Marcus Ashford was a success story, the American dream incarnate. A self-made man who had built a real estate empire from a single property investment. Business magazines featured him in their success issues. Universities invited him to give commencement speeches about perseverance. Aspiring entrepreneurs studied his methods and tried to replicate his ruthless efficiency. But Marcus had a secret that he had behind his perfect smile and expensive suits. Despite all his visible wealth, he was drowning in debt from catastrophic investments in a failed cryptocurrency venture. His marriage to Victoria was a hollow performance of the cameras. Two people who slept in separate wings and communicated through lawyers. His children, Madison and Brandon, barely spoke to him and called only when they needed money to fund their trust fund lifestyles. And the pressure of maintaining the illusion of success was crushing him slowly, like being buried alive under gold bars. Marcus dealt with stress by becoming cruel. It was the only way he knew how to feel powerful when everything else was spinning out of control. When the gardener trimmed a hedge half an inch shorter than specified, Marcus docked his entire week's pay and made him work on Sunday without additional compensation. When the chef overcooked the steak by 90 seconds, he threw the plate across the dining room, shattering it against the wall while screaming about incompetence. His staff lived in constant fear, walking on eggshells, speaking in whispers, knowing that any mistake could cost them their livelihood. But Marcus had a rationalization for his cruelty that he repeated to himself like a mantra. I built this empire through discipline. Weakness is contagious. If I tolerate mediocrity, everything crumbles. I'm not cruel, I'm demanding. I'm not heartless, I'm efficient. These people should be grateful to have jobs. They're replaceable. All of them. Every single one. He believed his cruelty was leadership. He believed fear was respect. He believed that his wealth gave him the right to treat human beings as disposable objects. And he was about to learn the most expensive lesson of his life. Marcus barely noticed Isabella. To him, she was furniture, functional, silent, replaceable, just another brown-skinned woman whose name he didn't know and whose humanity he didn't acknowledge. He didn't know her name was Isabella. He didn't know she was pregnant. He didn't know she had dreams. He didn't know she sent money home to her family. And he certainly didn't care about any of it because caring would require seeing her as human. But in less than 24 hours, Isabella would do something completely innocent that would give Marcus the excuse he'd been unconsciously looking for to unleash his cruelty. And he would take that opportunity with both hands, proving that sometimes the most dangerous person isn't the one with a weapon, but the one with power and no conscience. It was a Tuesday morning, the sky heavy with clouds that promised rain. Isabella would remember every detail that day for the rest of her life. The way you remember the day before everything changed forever. She was in the dining room, polishing the silverware that cost more than she'd earned in 5 years, when she felt the baby kick hard. So hard that it took her breath away. She gasped and dropped the silver spoon. It clattered on the marble floor, the sound echoing to the mansion like a gunshot. Marcus appeared in the doorway like a storm cloud taking human form. He'd been up all night on the phone with lawyers about his latest failed investment, a cryptocurrency scheme that had just cost him $43 million in a single day. His nerves were raw. His pride was wounded. His carefully constructed world was cracking. And he needed someone to blame. What was that noise? He demanded, his voice sharp as broken glass. Isabella bent down with difficulty due to her 7-month pregnancy to pick up the spoon, her movement slow and awkward. I'm so sorry, sir. It slipped from my hand. I'll be more careful. I promise it won't happen again. You'll what? Be more careful? Marcus's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Do you know how much that spoon costs? That single spoon? More than you make in 6 months. That spoon has been in my family for 3 generations. And you drop it like it's worthless. Isabella stood up slowly, clutching the spoon with trembling hands. Sir, I sincerely apologize. It won't happen again. I'll be more careful. I promise. Marcus's eyes narrowed as he noticed her swollen belly for the first time, the unmistakable curve pressing against her cheap uniform. Are you pregnant? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Isabella's heart stopped. Her mouth went dry. This was the moment she'd been dreading for 3 months. Yes, sir, but I promise it doesn't affect my work. I'm still able to do everything. I work the same hours. I haven't asked for any accommodation. I'm still productive. Doesn't affect your work? Marcus's laugh was sharp and cruel. You're slow. You're clumsy. You're dropping things. You're a liability to this household. And now I understand why. Isabella felt tears threaten to fall, but she fought them back desperately. Please, Mr. Ashford, I need this position. I'll work harder. I'll work extra hours without pay. I'll do anything. I need this job. My sister is depending on me. My baby is depending on me. Please. Are you crying? Marcus's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper, the tone of a predator circling wounded prey. Are you actually crying in my house? After you damaged my property? After you've been lying to me about your condition for months? Do you understand that's fraud? Deception? Sir, I didn't mean to deceive anyone. I just needed to work. I needed to support my family. I'm so sorry. Please, get out. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. What? Isabella whispered, the word barely audible. You're fired. Pack your things and leave my property. Now. But sir, please. I have nowhere to go. I'm 7 months pregnant. Please. Just let me stay until I find another position. I'll sleep in the servants' quarters. You don't even have to pay me. I'll work for free. Just please don't make me leave. I'm begging you. Marcus pulled out his phone with theatrical precision and called security. I want this woman removed from my property immediately. If she refuses to leave, call the police and have her arrested for trespassing. And check her belongings. She's probably been stealing from us for months. Mr. Ashford, please. I'm begging you. Isabella fell to her knees, her hands clasped in prayer. I'll work for free. I'll do anything. I'll clean the entire mansion every day. Just please don't throw me out. I have nowhere to go. Please have mercy. Security, Marcus shouted. 2 large men in black uniforms appeared. Escort her out. If she touches anything on her way out, it's theft. I'll press charges. I want her prosecuted to the full extent of the law. They grabbed Isabella by both arms roughly. She cried out in pain as they dragged her toward the door, her feet barely touching the ground. Please, my things, my savings notebook, my sister's address, my clothes. Throw it all away, Marcus said coldly, not even looking at her anymore. I don't want her filth contaminating my house. Burn it if you have to. And just like that, Isabella was thrown into the street. The heavy iron gate slammed behind her with a finality that sounded like death. She stood there, 7 months pregnant, with only the clothes on her back, $63 in her pocket, no phone because she couldn't afford one, and nowhere to go. The first drops of rain began to fall. Marcus didn't know it yet, but he had just made the worst decision of his life, because what happened next would expose him to the entire world, destroy his reputation, and prove that cruelty always comes back to haunt you. And the security camera on his neighbor's fence had captured everything. For the first hour after being thrown out, Isabella just walked. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't have a destination. She just walked because standing still meant accepting what had just happened, and she wasn't ready to do that yet. The sky darkened rapidly as if nature itself was responding to her tragedy. Thunder rumbled in the distance like the growl of an angry god. Within minutes, rain began to fall, softly at first, then harder, then in sheets so thick Isabella could barely see 3 feet in front of her. Her thin uniform soaked through immediately, offering no protection against the cold. She tried her friend Rosa's apartment first, the only person in the city she trusted. No answer. She knocked for 10 minutes until her knuckles bled. Rosa was probably at her cleaning job across town, unreachable, unavailable, unknowing that Isabella's life was falling apart. She went to the church where she volunteered on Sundays, teaching children's Bible study and helping serve meals to the homeless. The doors were locked. A sign said the office would reopen Thursday. That was 3 days away. 3 days she didn't have. She called her former employer from 2 years ago from a payphone, using her precious quarters. I'm sorry, Maria. I have no positions available. The economy is bad. I had to let 2 people go last month. I wish I could help you. The line went dead. Isabella stood outside a coffee shop, shivering violently, watching to the fog window as people laughed and drank their $7 lattes and checked their phones and lived their comfortable lives. None of them looked at her. She was invisible. Just another pregnant woman soaked by rain. Just another person who didn't matter. Just another statistic they'd step over on their way to somewhere important. The rain soaked through her thin uniform until it clung to her skin like ice. Her teeth chattered uncontrollably. Her feet, still swollen and now bare, because her shoes had fallen apart 2 blocks back, bled from walking on rough pavement and broken glass. The blood mixed with rainwater, leaving a trail that no one followed. But worse than the cold, worse than the pain, worse than the humiliation, was a feeling in her stomach. The baby wasn't moving. Isabella pressed both hands against her belly, tried to feel the familiar kicks and rolls. Nothing. "Please," she whispered, her voice lost in the rain. "Please move, mi amor. Please be okay. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I failed you. Please don't leave me. Please." Isabella's vision blurred. The world tilted sideways. She tried to reach for a lamppost to steady herself, but her hand couldn't find it. Her knees hit the concrete first, the impact sending shockwaves through her body. Then her hands. Then, God no, her stomach. She felt something wet and warm running down her legs, and she knew it wasn't rain. It was blood. "Help," she whispered, but the rain swallowed her voice. "Somebody help me. My baby. Please. Someone help my baby." People walked past. A man in an expensive suit glanced at her with disgust and quickened his pace. A woman pulled her child close and crossed the street. A teenager laughed and took a photo. No one stopped. No one called for help. No one cared. In a city of 3 million people, Isabella Rodriguez was completely and utterly alone. Isabella lay there on the cold, wet concrete, one hand on her belly where her baby had stopped moving, and closed her eyes. She was so tired, so cold, so defeated. Maybe if she just rested for a minute, just close her eyes for a moment, everything would be better. Maybe this was just a nightmare. Maybe she'd wake up in her narrow bed in the servants' quarters, and this would all be a terrible dream. "I'm sorry," she whispered to her unborn child, tears mixing with rain on her face. "I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry I failed you before you even had a chance. I'm sorry you got a mother like me. I'm sorry for everything." Her consciousness began to fade. The rain continued to fall. The world continued to move. Isabella Rodriguez was about to become another invisible statistic, another poor person who died alone and forgotten on a city street, another tragedy that would be mentioned in the news for 30 seconds before moving on to sports and weather. But Isabella didn't know that 15 feet away, partially hidden in the shadows of an alley behind a dumpster, someone was watching. Someone who had absolutely nothing to gain from helping her. Someone who was hungrier than she was, more desperate, more vulnerable. Someone who was about to make a choice that would ripple through time and change multiple destinies forever. Sometimes angels don't have wings. Sometimes they're 12 years old and live in cardboard boxes. The figure who stepped out of the shadows wasn't a doctor rushing to help. It wasn't a policeman with a radio. It wasn't a good Samaritan with a phone and resources. It was a 12-year-old homeless boy named Marcus. Yes, Marcus. The same first name as the billionaire. But this Marcus was his opposite in every way. This Marcus weighed maybe 68 pounds, soaking wet. His clothes were donated from a shelter and hung on a skeletal frame like rags on a scarecrow. His shoes had holes in them so large you could see his bare feet. His hair was matted and unwashed. His face was smudged with dirt and marked by malnutrition. His eyes were old, the eyes of someone who had seen too much suffering in too few years. Young Marcus lived in that alley, sleeping in a cardboard refrigerator box behind a dumpster. He survived on food from trash cans, the occasional dollar from a kind stranger, and soup from a mission on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He hadn't been to school in 3 years, not since his mother died. He had no family, no friends, no future that anyone could see. He was invisible to society, a ghost child that people looked through rather than at. By every measure that society uses to determine worth, Marcus had nothing. He was nothing. He would amount to nothing. Yet he was about to give everything, proving that character has nothing to do with bank accounts and everything to do with choices. Marcus stood at the edge of the alley, watching Isabella's body lying motionless in the rain. He'd seen people collapse before on these streets. Usually, someone called 911. Usually help came. But it had been 7 minutes now, and no one had stopped. No one cared. He looked at the $11 in his pocket, everything he had in the entire world. He'd been saving it for 3 weeks to buy a blanket from the thrift store. Winter was coming fast, and his cardboard box wouldn't be enough to survive the freezing nights. That blanket was the difference between living and dying when December came. "It's not your problem," a voice in his head said. The voice of survival. The voice of self-preservation. You can't save everyone. You have to take care of yourself first. No one ever helped you. Why should you help her? But Marcus looked at Isabella's hand on her belly, protective even in unconsciousness, and he remembered his own mother. He remembered 3 years ago when his mother had collapsed on a street just like this one. She'd been 8 months pregnant with his baby sister. She'd been sick for weeks but couldn't afford to see a doctor. People had walked past her too. Dozens of them. Hundreds. By the time someone finally called for help, it was too late. His mother died. The baby died. And Marcus had been alone ever since, a 12-year-old orphan in a city that devoured the vulnerable. Not again, Marcus whispered, rain streaming down his face. Not on my watch. Not while I'm still breathing. Marcus ran into the rain. He knelt beside Isabella and gently touched her shoulder. Miss? Miss, can you hear me? Can you open your eyes? Isabella's eyes fluttered open. Through her blurred vision, she saw a small, dirty face with concerned brown eyes. An angel, she thought. God sent me an angel. Please, she whispered. My baby. I can't feel my baby. Marcus saw the blood pooling beneath her, diluted by rain but unmistakable. He didn't have a phone. He had no money for a taxi, even if one would stop in this neighborhood. The nearest hospital was 4 miles away, and no ambulance would come to this part of the city fast enough. He knew this from experience. His mother had waited 45 minutes for an ambulance that came too late. He had only one option. An impossible option. A physically impossible option. Marcus was 4'7" and 68 pounds. Isabella was 5'5" and at 7 months pregnant, weighed about 155 pounds. It was physically impossible for him to carry her. Mathematically impossible. Medically impossible. But Marcus didn't think about impossibility. He thought about his mother. He thought about his baby sister, who never took a breath. He thought about all the people who had walked past his mother while she died. And he made a choice. I'm going to help you, he said, his voice steady despite his terror. Hold on to me. Just hold on. Marcus positioned himself, wrapped Isabella's arm around his small shoulders, placed his other arm around her back, and used every single ounce of strength in his malnourished body to lift her. His legs trembled violently. His back screamed in pain. His vision went white with effort. Every muscle in his body was tearing. But he took one step. He had no money for a taxi, even if one would stop in this neighborhood. The nearest hospital was 4 miles away, and no ambulance would come to this part of the city fast enough. He knew this from experience. His mother had waited 45 minutes for an ambulance that came too late. He had only one option. An impossible option. A physically impossible option. Marcus was 4'7" and 68 pounds. Isabella was 5'5" and at 7 months pregnant, weighed about 155 pounds. It was physically impossible for him to carry her. Mathematically impossible. Medically impossible. But Marcus didn't think about impossibility. He thought about his mother. He thought about his baby sister, who never took a breath. He thought about all the people who had walked past his mother while she died. And he made a choice. I'm going to help you, he said, his voice steady despite his terror. Hold on to me. Just hold on. Marcus positioned himself, wrapped Isabella's arm around his small shoulders, placed his other arm around her back, and used every single ounce of strength in his malnourished body to lift her. His legs trembled violently. His back screamed in pain. His vision went white with effort. Every muscle in his body was tearing. But he took one step, then another. Then another. Block one, and Marcus's shoulder felt like it was being crushed under a hydraulic press. Isabella was semi-conscious, her weight bearing down on a small frame with the force of the world. He stumbled on a broken piece of sidewalk, but caught himself at the last second. "Just leave me," Isabella whispered through her pain. "You can't do this. You're just a child. Save yourself." "I can," Marcus gasped, his voice barely audible. "I will. I have to." Block 2 and Marcus's bare feet were cut and bleeding from the rough pavement and broken glass. Rain poured into his eyes, making it nearly impossible to see where he was going. His arms shook uncontrollably. His entire body was shutting down. But he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. His mother's face was in his mind. Block 3 and a group of teenagers in a car drove past slowly. "Look at that homeless kid," one shouted, laughing. "What's he doing?" Another threw a half-full soda can that hit Marcus in the back of the head. He stumbled forward, nearly dropping Isabella, seeing stars. But he held on. He always held on. Block 4, and Marcus's breath came in ragged gasps. Tears mixed with rain on his face. "Please," he prayed to a God he wasn't sure was listening. "Please let me make it. Please don't let her die like my mother. Please. I'm begging you. Give me strength. Just a little more strength." Block 5 and the free clinic came into view, still 3 blocks away but visible. Marcus's vision was darkening at the edges. His body was giving out. His heart was beating so fast it felt like it would explode. But he was almost there. Almost. Block 6 and Marcus's legs gave out. He crashed through the clinic doors and collapsed, Isabella falling beside him onto the linoleum floor. "Help her!" He screamed with the last of his strength. "She's pregnant. She's bleeding. Please help her. Please." Nurses rushed forward immediately. They lifted Isabella onto a gurney and wheeled her away. A doctor knelt beside Marcus, checking his pulse, shining a light in his eyes. "Son, what you just did, carrying someone 4 miles in your condition, that's medically impossible. You should be dead. Your heart should have given out. How did you do it?" Marcus managed a weak smile before his eyes closed. "I had to. Someone has to care." Then everything went black. What happened in that delivery room over the next 5 hours would either be a miracle or a tragedy. But Marcus had done all he could. He'd given everything, literally everything, nearly dying in the process. What he didn't know as he lay unconscious on that clinic floor was that in 15 years, the life he'd saved tonight would return to save his in ways more profound than anyone could imagine. And the billionaire who had started this chain of events was about to face consequences that would destroy everything he'd built. 5 hours later, a nurse found Marcus sleeping on the waiting room floor, curled in a ball, still soaked from the rain. She gently shook him awake, her eyes red from crying. She'd heard his story from the other nurses. "Honey, wake up." The young boy's eyes opened slowly. "The baby?" he asked immediately, before even sitting up. "Is the baby okay?" The nurse smiled through her tears. "It's a boy. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. Healthy. Perfect. And the mother is stable. You saved both their lives. You're a hero." "I'm not a hero," Marcus whispered. "I just did what anyone should do." The nurse helped him to his feet. "Most people don't do it though, do they? That's what makes you a hero." They let Marcus into Isabella's room. She was pale and exhausted, with 4 tubes in her arms and monitors beeping softly. But alive. Gloriously, miraculously alive. In her arms, wrapped in a hospital blanket, was a tiny baby boy with a full head of dark hair. When Isabella saw Marcus, tears streamed down her face. "They told me what you did. They told me you carried me 4 miles. They told me you almost died. I don't even know your name." "Marcus," he said quietly. "My name is Marcus." "Marcus," Isabella repeated, looking at her baby. She was quiet for a long moment, and then she said, "That's what I'll name him. After you, the boy who saved his life. Marcus II." The boy looked at his shoes, embarrassed. "You don't have to do that." "I want to," Isabella said firmly. So he never forgets that a stranger cared enough to save him. So he grows up knowing that kindness is real. So he becomes the kind of man you already are at 12 years old. Isabella pulled out a crumpled $20 bill from her pocket, money from her last paycheck that she'd somehow kept. "Please, take this. It's not enough, but it's all I have. Buy yourself food. Buy yourself shoes. Marcus stepped back quickly. I don't want money. Then what? Isabella asked desperately. What can I give you? Tell me. Anything. Marcus looked at the baby with an expression far too old for his young face. Just promise me you'll take care of him. Promise me he'll grow up knowing someone cared enough to save him. Promise me he'll never be alone like I am. Promise me his life will matter. Isabella sobbed. I promise. I promise on everything holy. When the nurse returned an hour later to check on Isabella, Marcus was gone. He'd slipped out while Isabella was sleeping, disappearing back into the city like a ghost. Isabella would spend years trying to find him. She asked at every homeless shelter in the city. She showed his description to every social worker. If you want part 2, please comment below so I get motivation for next part to write. She offered rewards. She hired a private investigator with money she didn't have, but Marcus had vanished completely. It was as if he'd been an angel sent for one specific purpose, and then called back to wherever angels live when they're not saving lives. Meanwhile, 3 miles away in his mansion, Marcus Ashford slept peacefully in his king-size bed with $1,000 sheets, completely unaware that his cruel act had been witnessed by his neighbor's security camera. Unaware that the footage was already circulating on social media with the caption, "Billionaire throws pregnant woman into street." Unaware that by morning, his name would be synonymous with heartless cruelty. Unaware that his entire world was about to collapse. But that reckoning was still hours away. For now, 2 people named Marcus slept. One in a mansion, surrounded by luxury he didn't deserve. One in an alley, in a cardboard box, having given everything to save a stranger. And one tiny baby named Marcus II slept in his mother's arms, alive because of the choice, living proof that the smallest person can make the biggest difference. Isabella made 2 promises at night in the hospital. First, to be the mother her son deserved, and second, to find the boy who would save them and repay him somehow. She would keep both promises, but the way she'd keep them would surprise everyone, including herself. Because sometimes the universe has plans bigger than we can imagine, and sometimes miracles take 15 years to fully unfold. 15 years passed. Let me tell you what happened in those 15 years. Because every detail matters. Because every choice creates ripples that spread farther than we can see. Isabella found a job 2 weeks after leaving the hospital. It was at a small family restaurant washing dishes for $8 an hour. She worked 10-hour shifts. Her baby strapped her back in a donated carrier. She saved every penny. Living in a tiny room above the restaurant of the owner, Mrs. Chun, let her have for free because she'd heard Isabella's story. 3 years later, Isabella became a line cook. She learned to make every dish on the menu. She arrived early and stayed late. She never complained. She never missed a day. She worked with the fierce determination of someone who had been thrown away and refused to stay discarded. 5 years later, she bought the restaurant when Mrs. Chin retired. Isabella took out loans that terrified her, working 20-hour days, bringing her son Marcus to work every day because she couldn't afford childcare. The restaurant began to thrive under her management. She added new dishes. She trained her staff with kindness. She never, ever threw anyone away. 10 years later, she owned a chain of 6 restaurants across the city. Her food was featured in magazines. She won awards. But more importantly, she never forgot where she came from. She hired people who were overlooked, single mothers, former homeless individuals, people with criminal records who needed second chances, immigrants who spoke broken English. She paid them fairly and treated them with dignity. 15 years later, Isabella Chun, she'd taken Mrs. Chen's last name in honor of the woman who'd saved her, was worth $14 million. She lived in a comfortable home with her son Marcus, now 15 years old. She'd never forgotten where she came from. She drove past a mansion where she'd worked every single day and remembered. And she'd never forgotten the boy who saved her. She kept a photo that a nurse had secretly taken of young Marcus sleeping on the hospital floor. She kept it on her desk, and she never stopped looking. As for young Marcus, the homeless boy, no one knew where he'd gone. Some said he'd died that winter. Others said he'd been taken in by a family, but there were no records, no trail, no footprints in time. He'd vanished completely from the world's notice. Or so everyone thought. Marcus Ashford's life had gone in the opposite direction, a mirror image of Isabella's rise. The video of him firing a pregnant woman went viral within hours. 20 million views, 50 million, 100 million. The world watched him throw Isabella into the street. They read the caption. They heard her begging. They saw his cold face. And they were furious. His business partners abandoned him. His investors pulled out. His wife left him and took half of his already crumbling fortune. His children changed their last names. He lost everything in lawsuits from former employees who came forward with their own stories of abuse. Now, Marcus Ashford lived in a small two-bedroom apartment, working as a mid-level manager at a real estate firm, bitter and alone. He'd lost his fortune. He'd lost his reputation. He'd lost his family. But he'd never learned the lesson. He still believed the world had been unfair to him. He still believed he was a victim. He'd lost everything, but he gained nothing. No wisdom, no growth, no change. But the universe wasn't done with Marcus Ashford yet, because on a Thursday afternoon in October, 15 years after that rainy night, three lives were about to collide again in the most unexpected way. And this time, the roles would be reversed in ways that would prove that mercy is stronger than revenge, that compassion is more powerful than cruelty, and that the smallest act of kindness can echo through time in ways we never imagined. Marcus Ashford sat in his cramped apartment, staring at the medical bill in his trembling hands. $265,000 for his daughter Emma's surgery. His daughter, Emma, now 23, had been diagnosed with a rare heart condition 6 months ago. Without surgery in the next 10 days, she would die. The doctors were clear, unambiguous, certain. 10 days. Marcus had already sold everything of value. His watch, his cufflinks, his furniture. He'd begged every former business contact for loans and been rejected by all of them. He'd been turned down by every bank. He had $4,000 to his name. He needed $265,000. The gap was insurmountable. Marcus did something he never thought he'd do, something that would have been unthinkable in his former life. He went to a charity organization for financial help. He sat in the waiting room surrounded by people he once would have looked down on. Poor families, immigrants speaking broken English, people working 3 jobs just to survive, people he would have called lazy, people he would have said just needed to work harder. And now he was one of them. Mr. Ashford? A social worker called his name. Marcus followed her into a small office. On the wall was a plaque that made his blood run cold. Chin Foundation for Medical Assistance. Founder, Isabella Chun. The social worker saw him staring. "Do you know her?" she asked. "I used to," Marcus whispered. "A long time ago. She's an amazing woman." The social worker continued, oblivious to Marcus's distress. "Started from nothing. She was actually homeless and pregnant 15 years ago. Nearly died on the street. But someone saved her, and she built an empire. Now she helps people like you. People who have nowhere else to turn." Marcus felt like he was going to be sick. The woman he destroyed was now the only person who could save his daughter. Meanwhile, across the city, Isabella was in her office reviewing grant applications. Her foundation had helped over 800 families in the past 6 years. But she looked at every application personally. She never delegated this. She needed to see every face, read every story, remember that behind every number was a human being. Her assistant knocked. "Isabella, there's an urgent case. A man needs $265,000 for his daughter's heart surgery. He has no insurance, no assets, no options. His name is Marcus Ashford." Isabella's pen stopped mid-signature. She looked up slowly. "What did you say his name was?" "Marcus Ashford. Says he used to be a businessman, but lost everything about 15 years ago. His daughter Emma is dying. The surgery has to happen within 10 days, or she'll die. Should I schedule an appointment?" "I'll see him," Isabella said quietly. "Now. Bring him now." Richard was led into Isabella's office 10 minutes later. The moment he saw her, shame crashed over him like a tsunami. She was elegant in a simple but expensive dress. She was confident, sitting behind a large desk with photographs of her son. She was everything he used to be, and he was everything she used to be. "Hello, Marcus," Isabella said, her voice calm but unreadable. "Isabella," Marcus could barely speak. "I don't expect you to help me. I know what I did to you 15 years ago was unforgivable. I fired you when you were pregnant. I threw you into the street like garbage. I refused to give you your belongings. I destroyed your life. And I would understand if you wanted revenge. I would understand if you wanted to watch me suffer. But my daughter," Marcus's voice broke, "she's innocent. She doesn't deserve to die for my sins. If you have any compassion, please, I'm begging you, help her." "Stop," Isabella said firmly. Marcus fell silent. Isabella stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. "Do you know what happened to me that night?" Marcus shook his head. "I collapsed on the street, bleeding, dying. My baby was dying inside me. Dozens of people walked past me, just like you drove past me in your car. I was nothing to them, just like I was nothing to you. Just another poor person, just another problem to ignore." But someone stopped. Isabella turned to face him. A 12-year-old homeless boy who had even less than I did. He had $11 to his name. He was starving. He was alone. He had every reason to protect himself and ignore me. But he carried me 4 miles in the freezing rain. His feet bled. His body nearly gave out. He almost died saving me. And he saved my baby's life. After that night, I made a promise. I promised if I ever had the power to help someone in desperate need, I would, no matter who they were, no matter what they'd done to me. Because mercy isn't about what people deserve, Marcus. It's about who we choose to be. Marcus's eyes filled with tears for the first time in 15 years. "You'll help Emma? I'll cover the entire cost of the surgery," Isabella said. $265,000. Every penny. On one condition. "Anything," Marcus whispered. "You have to be there when she wakes up. You have to tell her that you were saved by the same mercy you once refused to give. And you have to promise me that you'll spend the rest of your life paying it forward. That you'll never throw another person away. That you'll see every human being as valuable. Can you do that?" "Yes," Marcus sobbed. "Yes, I promise. I swear. Thank you. Thank you." "There's one more thing," Isabella said. "The surgeon who will perform Emma's operation. He'll be here in a few minutes. I want you to meet him." Marcus agreed, confused but grateful. Anything. He'd agree to anything to save his daughter. But what neither of them knew was that the surgeon who would perform Emma's operation was about to walk through that door. And when they saw his face, both Isabella and Marcus would realize that some miracles are 15 years in the making, and sometimes the people we think are lost are actually exactly where they need to be. The office door opened. A man in surgical scrubs entered. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair graying at the temples, kind brown eyes, and the confident posture of someone who saves lives for a living. "Mrs. Chun, you wanted to see me about the Ashford case?" Isabella looked up and froze. Her hand went to her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears. She stood up slowly, staring at the man as if she'd seen a ghost. "Marcus?" Marcus Ashford was confused. "Who is Marcus?" The surgeon smiled gently at Isabella. "It's been a long time." Isabella couldn't speak. She walked around her desk slowly, staring at the surgeon's face. "You're the boy. You're the boy who saved me." "I am," the surgeon said. "I'm Dr. Marcus Rivera." Marcus Ashford's mind reeled. "Wait, you were the homeless boy. You were 12 years old. You were dying in that alley. How did you become a surgeon?" "After I saved Isabella that night," Dr. Rivera said, "sitting down, I went back to my alley. I was so exhausted I could barely breathe. I slept for 16 hours. The next morning, a woman found me. Her name was Dr. Patricia Henderson. She was a doctor at the clinic where I'd brought Isabella. She'd heard about what I'd done. Dr. Rivera's eyes grew distant with memory. She told me that anyone with that much compassion and strength deserved a chance at life. She took me in. fostered me, put me through school, paid for my college and my medical school. She said I had a gift for caring about people, and she wanted to make sure I could use it. I became a cardiac surgeon because I wanted to save lives. Just like I saved yours, Isabella. Just like I'm going to save your daughter's life, Mr. Ashford. Marcus Ashford collapsed into a chair, his face in his hands. I don't understand. I threw Isabella out. I would have thrown you out too if I'd known you were living in the alley behind my house. I was cruel. I was heartless. I'm the villain in this story. Why would you help my daughter? Because, Mr. Ashford, Dr. Rivera leaned forward. I learned something that night in the rain. I learned that the world has enough cruelty. It doesn't need more from me. You made your choices. You hurt people. You lost everything because of it. That's your consequence. You're living with that every day. But your daughter is innocent. She's 23 years old with her whole life ahead of her. She deserves to live. And if I have the power to save her, I will. Not because you deserve it, but because she does. Isabella walked over to Dr. Rivera and embraced him. Tears streamed down her face. I looked for you for years. I went to every shelter. I asked everyone, where did you go? I needed time to heal, he said quietly. I needed to become someone who could properly honor what we went through. I wasn't ready to be found. I had to earn the right to face you again. You were always worthy, Isabella said through tears. You saved my life. You saved my son's life. Everything I have exists because of you. And I became a doctor because you showed me that one night of compassion can change everything, Dr. Rivera said. We saved each other, Isabella. You gave me a reason to survive. The surgery was scheduled for 3 days later. Dr. Marcus Rivera operated for 9 hours. When he emerged from the operating room, his scrubs soaked with sweat, Marcus Ashford stood up so fast he nearly fell. She's going to be fine, Dr. Rivera said, smiling. The surgery was a complete success. Emma's heart is strong. She'll make a full recovery. Marcus broke down sobbing. Thank you. Thank you. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve your mercy. You're right, Dr. Rivera said gently but firmly. You don't, but your daughter does. And now you have a choice, Mr. Ashford. You can waste a second chance, or you can become the man you should have been 15 years ago. The man who sees every human being as valuable. The man who gives mercy instead of cruelty. What will you choose? Marcus looked at Isabella, then at Dr. Rivera. I choose to change. I choose to be better. I choose to spend the rest of my life proving that mercy wasn't wasted on me. Then let's begin, Isabella said. There's a homeless shelter that needs volunteers. I think you should start there. Marcus Ashford made his choice that day. But the full impact of that choice and the ripple effect of one homeless boy's compassion wouldn't be fully understood for years to come. Because mercy doesn't just save one person. It saves everyone it touches. And it echoes through time forever. 5 years after Emma's surgery, the world looked very different. Isabella's foundation had grown to help over 7,000 families. Her restaurant chain had expanded to 14 locations across 3 states. But more importantly, her son Marcus, now 20 years old, was in medical school at the same university where Dr. Rivera taught. He wanted to be a cardiac surgeon, just like the man he was named after. Dr. Marcus Rivera had performed over 400 life-saving surgeries in those 5 years. He never charged patients who couldn't afford it. His practice lost money constantly, but he didn't care. He'd also started a mentorship program for homeless youth, proving that circumstances don't define destiny, that one person's compassion can change the trajectory of an entire life. And Marcus Ashford spent those 5 years working at a homeless shelter every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. He served meals to people living on the streets, people just like young Marcus had been. He'd memorized each person's name. He'd learned their stories. He'd helped 23 people find jobs and housing. He'd given away most of his salary. One evening, Marcus Ashford was cleaning tables at the shelter when a young homeless man approached him. Sir, I just wanted to say thank you, not just for the food, for seeing me. Most people look right through us like we're invisible, like we're not even human. Marcus's eyes filled with tears, something that happened often now. I used to be one of those people, but someone taught me that every human being has infinite worth. I'm sorry it took me so long to learn. It took losing everything to finally understand what really matters. That Christmas, Isabella invited both Dr. Rivera and Marcus Ashford to her home for dinner. Three people who should have never crossed paths again sat together around a table, breaking bread, sharing stories, celebrating the miracle of second chances. I propose a toast, Isabella said, raising her glass of sparkling cider, to the night that changed all our lives, to the boy who proved that heroism has nothing to do with wealth or status, and to the power of second chances. To second chances, Marcus Ashford echoed, looking at Dr. Rivera, and to the young man who taught me what real strength looks like. Strength isn't power over others. It's choosing compassion when you have every reason not to. To the family we become, Dr. Rivera added, because family isn't just blood. It's the people who save you when you're drowning. So what's the lesson here? Let me tell you what I learned from this story, and I hope you'll learn it too. First, never underestimate the power of one act of compassion. Young Marcus had nothing. No money, no home, no future that anyone could see. But he had a choice. And that choice saved 3 lives directly and changed thousands of others indirectly. Every act of kindness ripples outward in ways we can never fully measure. Second, cruelty always comes back to haunt you. Marcus Ashford's heartless act destroyed his entire life. He lost his wealth, his family, his reputation, everything. But even then, even after all that loss, mercy found him. Because mercy isn't about fairness. It's about humanity. It's about choosing to be better than our worst instincts. Third, the person you look down on today might be the person who saves you tomorrow. Treat every human being with dignity. The homeless person you ignore might be the one who pulls you from a burning car. The janitor you dismiss might be the one who calls the ambulance when you have a heart attack. Every single person has value. Every single person matters. And finally, it's never too late to change. Marcus Ashford was a villain for 52 years of his life. He was cruel, heartless, and destructive. But in his final chapter, he chose to become something better. He chose redemption. He chose growth. Your past doesn't define your future. Your choices today do. Every single day, you get to choose who you want to be. If this story touched your heart, I have a challenge for you. This week, do one act of compassion for someone who can't repay you. Help someone who's invisible to society. See someone who's overlooked. Buy a meal for a homeless person. Help a single mother carry her groceries. Volunteer at a shelter. Give your time, not just your money, because you might just be the homeless boy in someone else's story. You might be the miracle someone's been praying for. You might be the reason someone chooses to keep living. Subscribe to this channel if you want more stories that restore your faith in humanity. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And remember, kindness is never wasted. Never. Every act of compassion echoes through time. Every choice to show mercy creates ripples that spread farther than we can see. And sometimes, the smallest person makes the biggest difference. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been helped by a stranger when you needed it most? Or have you been the stranger who helped someone else when you had every reason to walk away? Share your story in the comments below. Tell me about a time when compassion changed your life or when you changed someone else's life. Let's fill this comment section with hope. Next time on this channel, I'll tell you about the woman who adopted a starving orphan from an underfunded shelter, only to discover years later that the child she saved was actually the heir to $1 billion fortune. But the twist isn't what you think. You won't want to miss it. If you love this story, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on. Hit that like button if this story moved you, if it made you think differently about the people you see on the streets. And share with someone who needs to be reminded that good people still exist in this world, that mercy is real, that compassion still matters. Until next time, remember this truth. The smallest act of kindness can create the biggest miracles. Your compassion might be the only thing standing between someone and despair. Never stop being the light. Never stop choosing mercy. Never stop seeing the humanity in every single person you meet. because we're all connected. We're all in this together. And sometimes the person with the least to give has the most to offer.